Hello, Drywall Repairman here. We're just doing a simple video on a tip. This is the most important thing to do before you patch any wall. In the ideal world, you want a patch cut out from stud to stud, but that's not always the case. Sometimes studs are set from everywhere from 16 to 24 inches, so cutting from stud to stud would make the patch a large area. For instance, on this patch, if I cut from stud to stud, I'd be going into the angle. So with this area, the patch is nice and square. So the first thing I want to do is add some screws to tighten up the existing sheetrock. Putting the screws in the existing sheetrock studs also marks the studs for me. So you're tightening up. Whenever you have to use backing, I like to use these 1x2s. Some people like to use 2x4s, 1x3s, wood sheeting, whatever you have to add wood backing to both sides of the patches. These 1x2s are easy to work with. They're cheap and easy. Some guys like to use 1x3s because these 1x2s do split sometimes. But if you use them correctly, you can just do this method like I'm doing here. I'm just putting it halfway on the stud so I'm able to get screws on the existing sheetrock halfway through the 1x2. So whenever I put my patch across, I have something to screw to. Everybody thinks you can use the existing studs, which you can, but you need to tighten up left, right, bottom, and top of patches if possible. It makes a nice strong patch, especially a large patch like this. You definitely want framing on the left and right side. Pipes and stuff like this, just make sure everything's out of the way so you don't want screws going through to touch these pipes. Plumber should have secured these properly, but I'm just the drywaller. Like I said, existing studs, add plenty of screws, just use these 1x2s. This is just a simple trick in the trade, adding framing and walls, patches. This is a large patch. You know, it's a 6-foot by 3-foot patch, but it's the same thing if I did a 1x1 patch or a 7-foot by 7-foot patch. It's the same thing. You're going to have to add framing and have plenty of framing. I see a lot of guys, patches, they just put screws in the existing framing, but then the patch is still wobbling. You want a nice secure patch on the new sheetrock and the existing wall. No flexibility, no movement. If the patch can move, then it's going to move after you mud and texture it, and then it'll crack out. So that's why we add plenty of backing, cheap backing like this. It just keeps the patch from cracking out. Once you get all your studs in, just make sure everything's tight. Add plenty of screws. Screws and backing are cheap. These are the simple steps of doing before you sheetrock. Get everything ready to go, and then you can install your sheetrock once you get plenty of backing. But it's just a simple video, a tip video on adding backing. It's the most important part when the wall's open. Make sure your wall's ready to go with framing.